What's up guys, this is Poppy. I got a great video for you today. I'm going to show you guys how to hook up a looper pedal to a mixer board. In this video, I'm going to show you two methods to hook it up. The first method you can use with any stereo mixer. You will need one more channel than you have inputs. So if you have 3 instruments or 4 inputs, or 5 inputs, it doesn't matter. You're going to need that many more channels. You need 1 extra channel. So if you have 3 instruments that you want to run, you're going to need 4 channels available on the mixer. If you want to run 5 instruments or 5 signals, then you're going to need 6 because you need a channel for the loop pedal to come back into. So I've got a simple setup going on here. I am using a Behringer Xenyx X1204 USB for this particular job. So we'll go through the connections and the inputs very fast. So I have the output of the mixer board. I have the left main output, which is going to be your mono output, going into my mains, which I just have this little speaker hooked up here to check that out. And just an XLR cable. And then I have the right output, the main output, connected to my looper, to the input. My looper pedal is an RC1. It's a simple loop station. So the issue I ran into is I wanted to loop more than just 1 instrument per loop pedal, and I didn't want to buy 2 or 3 or 4 loop pedals. As you know, these are about $100. So I wanted to be able to loop all of my channels and to basically loop everything I was putting into the mixer board out to the loop station and then run that out to the mains. So the way that I've found to do it, you can do this on any mixer, is to run the right output into the input, and from the output of the loop station, we go from that into a clean channel, any stereo channel, so I'm running it off the left, off the mono channel. Now every channel here is a stereo channel, meaning it's running signals to left and to the right. So this is the way we're going to distribute the signal. So I've got 2 inputs coming in that I want to mix that I'm going to loop down. This would be pretty typical of a solo performer. I've got 1 mic input that's going to my microphone, and I have my guitar input that's going into my guitar. So I'll be looping both of these together from the mixer board onto the loop station. Okay, so the main premise is this, is that my input channels are coming down the board, and I have them panned all the way to the right. That is to say that I'm sending everything on my right signal, on my main output right, everything here is going out to the pedal. And the pedal is sending it back into this channel, which I'm then routing back, and I'm sending this one all the way to the left. The reason for this is I do not want the looper pedal to send signal back to itself, because then you'd get double signal and feedback issues, and that would be terrible. So I'm restricting this output of this channel to be on the left. If I had it turned to the right, it would send it back into itself, and that would be no good. So I'm sending this only to the left, which is going to be going to the mains. So my left slider is going to control my mains. My right slider is sending how much signal is coming into the loop station. So you could do this with any input. As you can see, I could input other inputs, a synthesizer, a bass guitar, anything, other microphones, and I would do the same thing. I would pan them all to the right to send that signal to the right channel, and then send the right out into the loop station and send that back into a fresh channel into the left side. Now the reason I want to send it into a channel here as opposed to using the stereo aux returns is because I want to have the controls of the EQ and the mute functions. If I just use the stereo aux, I don't have nearly as much control over that channel. Alright, so now I'm going to demonstrate how the looper actually works. So on channel 1, we're going to unmute channel 1, and this is sending it out to the mains. I also have my channel where my loop station is connected unmuted, so it's also coming out to the mains. Notice that if I mute this channel, it mutes everything, because I'm sending this to the right, this is coming into this channel, so this channel controls all of the channels because it's what's going out to the mains. It's the only channel coming out of the left. If I mute each individual channel, it will mute it out of the mains because it's not sending it to the loop pedal. Muting it off the right is going to not send it to the mute pedal. So if you had one channel that you didn't want to send to the loop mixer anymore, or the loop anymore, you just mute that channel individually. If I want to mute the entire mix, I mute the channel that's coming in from the loop station. All right, so we're going to loop a small loop. I'm just going to put a vocal mix to show you that I can loop my vocals into the loop station. This is an RC1, so this is an entry-level loop station. It'll take just one input and loop it infinite loops on top of itself. So as you see, I'm just going to do something. Not bad. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of guitar into it. Alright, so there you see that the looper works. Just as expected, I can loop anything from the mixer into the loop station and then run the loop station back into the mixer board. This main slider is going to control the volume, the master volume of the mix itself. It's also going to control how much output you have on your instruments, because your instruments are run through this channel. So if I turn the slider down that has the loop hooked up to it, the entire volume is going to go down, and I can run it back up. And if we have the loop station going, so maybe your loop volume is too much, you can use the volume on the looper itself to adjust how much of your looped mix you want coming out to the mains. This volume, though, will not affect how much of your input you have coming in. As you can see, turning the volume doesn't affect the volume of the instrument because that's controlled through the channels. This is really excellent. This also prevents you from getting two signals at the same time, because we're throwing only our input signals to the right, our output signals on the left, so we're not getting double signal when we throw the loop station back into the mixer board. This will prevent any feedback issues, and this makes it really versatile. You should be able to use this setup on any mixer board that has stereo capabilities. As long as you have a left channel and a right channel out, you can do the same thing and handle as many channels as your mixer board will mix down into one signal. So this is the first way to set it up. This would work pretty much, like I said, on any mixer that has a stereo channel, stereo outputs. I'm going to also show you a different way to hook it up the way I'm going to be using it on this particular board because of its particular functions. That's a little bit more complex, but it's going to work a little bit better for what I want. So for this case, what I'm going to do is disconnect the right output from the board, because we're not going to be using that anymore. And instead, I'm going to use the aux outputs. If your mixer board has this capability, you can also do this, any kind of aux output. So I'm going to come out of the alternate outputs 4. You can also use the control room if you want, but this is going to work better for me because I have modes on this particular board. And from here, I'm going to go into the input of my loop pedal. So I'm coming out of Alt 4 or Alt 3, my aux output, into, or a sub output if you will. This is called Alt on this one, into my loop station. Input, and the output is the same. The output is still going into one of these clean channels. Okay, so on this board now, the way that this works, on this particular board, and this is a 1204 Xenyx, this button is not an actual mute button. This button differentiates between whether it's sending the signal out to the main mix or whether it's sending it to the alt mix. So if it's down, it's going to be sending the mix to the alt channels, and if it's up, it'll be sending the mix to the main mix. Now this board also has an issue that I'll show you here in just a second, and this is why I'm going to run it this way. I just think this was a design flaw from Behringer itself, and if not, it's just I just don't agree with the way that they have this set up. But this is the issue. So let's see here. So for this, I am going to run all of the pans level back to square because that's not necessary anymore. I'm going to run my loop pedal to the mains. I only have one main this time because it's only coming out of the left. So I'm going to unmute that one. These channels I'm going to have down because I want to send these to the Alt-3-4. I do not want these channels to go to the main, so I'm going to leave them muted. That means it's going to be sending the signal to my Alt-3 and 4. But I only have the signal coming out of Alt-3, so I'm going to push it up almost to unity. And I'm trying to get the same volume that I would normally without having to run the loop pedal in between. So you notice if I unmute this channel, we get sound out of the speaker. So I've unmuted this channel. This is the way you would work it normally. This is just your standard hookup. You unmute it and it's coming out of the mains. If I turn it down, it turns it down. And if I turn it up, it turns it up. Now, I want it not to come out that way. I want it to come out of the other channel. So I'm going to run it also through 7 and 8. As you notice, this is not nearly as loud as the other one was. So we need to make it a little bit louder so that it's the same volume as the other one. Now that's a pretty close right there. So that means we're getting maximum signal out of the output back into here, and then we can adjust how much of this comes out, and we can adjust our mains here. So now we have the channels coming in from this to the output. It's going into the Alt-3-4 section. And from Alt-3-4, it's coming out into the looper pedal, and from the looper pedal, it's going in to here. And in from here, then it's coming out to the mains. So we're collecting the signal after it's mixed from the alt channel, including effects, sending it to the looper, and then from the looper, we're sending it back into the mixer board so we can take it out to the mains. And so that's why this one is not muted, so now I have all of my channels coming through here. Now this is really good, because I can also send the effects through there now. I was going to show you why the mixer board is not working the way that I wanted it to. If you see, this is my effects knob. So I'm going to turn on some effects so you can hear it. Effects, effects, effects. This is the way it would normally work. If I turn on some effects, and I've got some delay and reverb going on there. I like the effects on this board. Nevertheless, usually when you hit the mute button, it's going to mute the entire channel, but as you'll notice, when I hit the mute button, the effects don't mute. You see, now I'm talking and the effects are coming out. The dry signal is not, but the effects is not muted on this channel. This is true on every channel, so somehow it was wired this way in engineering. I don't really like this, because when I mute the button, it doesn't really mute the effects. And if I want to use effects, that becomes a pain, because then when I want to mute the channels and take a break, then I've got to turn down my main effects from my mains over here. And that's just kind of unnecessary garbage. So what I'm going to do, because I'm running it through the alt outputs, I have this function on this board where I can run the effects through the Alt-3-4 if I mash this down. So if I push this down, now the effects are going to route through the Alt-3-4 section, meaning, and this is great because that means I have all of my channels going to the Alt-3-4, so they're running with the effects through the Alt-3-4, and then after it's effect and processed, it's sending the signal to the looper pedal. So the looper pedal will be grabbing the effects from each channel, and I can individually adjust the effects on these channels. Now I may do a different video later on how to actually utilize a board in more detail, what your goals are and what you're attempting to do. This is just a specific video about how to hook up a looper pedal to maximize what you can do with your board and the looper pedal. All right, so now I'm going to demonstrate by running a small loop so you can see this in action. I'm going to start with guitar. We'll add a little vocal now. And if I wanted to play on top of it, say with a solo, I can do that also. So this is how I run my setup. If you guys have any comments, just please leave them below. Any questions, I'll answer those also if I know. Till next time, peace.